how to structure the curriculum to provide the easiest way to understand Azure. 1. Introduction to Cloud Computing. Fundamentals, explain the basics of cloud computing, its benefits, and types, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. Cloud service models, discuss public, private, and hybrid clouds. 2. Getting started with Azure. Azure Overview, provide an overview of Azure services and their significance in the cloud landscape. Setting up, guide through creating an Azure account and navigating the Azure portal. 3. Core Azure Services. Compute services, cover virtual machines, app services, and Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS. Storage services, explain Azure Blob Storage, file storage, and disk storage. Networking, discuss Azure Virtual Network, Load Balancer, and VPN Gateway. 4. Identity and Access Management. Azure Active Directory, introduce Azure AD, its components, and identity management. Role-Based Access Control, RBAC, explain RBAC and how to manage access to resources. 5. Database Services. Azure SQL Database, overview of Azure SQL Database, its features, and use cases. NoSQL options, discuss Cosmos DB and its global distribution and scaling capabilities. 6. Monitoring and Management. Azure Monitor, explain how to use Azure Monitor for collecting and analyzing telemetry data. Azure Security Center, discuss security best practices and threat protection. 7. DevOps and Automation. Azure DevOps, introduce Azure DevOps services for CI/CD pipelines and project management. Automation, explain Azure Automation and how to create and manage runbooks. 8. Hands-on labs and projects. Virtual machines, create and manage a virtual machine. Web apps, deploy and scale a web application using Azure App Services. Database integration, set up an Azure SQL database and connect it to a web application. Networking setup, configure a virtual network with subnets, network security groups, and VPN gateways. 9. Advanced topics. Serverless computing, introduce Azure Functions and Logic apps for event-driven programming. Big Data and Analytics, discuss Azure Synapse Analytics, HD Insight, and Azure Databricks. AI and Machine Learning, cover Azure Cognitive Services and Azure Machine Learning. 10. Security and Compliance. Security best practices, discuss security measures, data encryption, and compliance certifications. Identity protection, implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, and conditional access policies. 11. Supplementary learning resources. Microsoft Learn, utilize free, interactive training resources on Microsoft Learn. Certification path, guide students towards relevant Azure certifications, AZ900, AZ104, etc. Community engagement, encourage participation in Azure community forums and events. 12. Assessment and continuous improvement. Quizzes and exercises, regular assessments to ensure understanding and retention. Capstone Project, a comprehensive project integrating multiple Azure services. Feedback loop, collect feedback to iterate and improve the curriculum.